Okay, so let's start with the date. Monday, January 27th, 2025.
All right.
I mean, does it trigger a visceral reaction for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those moments, if you were working in finance or tech or really just glued to a terminal, you remember that sea of red?
$750 billion.
Right.
That's the number that just, sticks in my head.
Yeah.
That much value just gone from the S&P 500
Yeah.
in a single day. And, usually when you see a number that big, you assume a bank collapsed or a war started.
Or a pandemic. But no, this time it was a GitHub notification.
DeepSeek released its R1 reasoning model.
Yeah.
And here we are, February 2026, looking back.
Yeah.
It's just wild to think a single open source release could cause that level of financial panic. But we aren't here to, rehash the stock market crash. We've all seen the charts.
Right. We all know what happened to the chip stocks that week. We're here for the story that started the morning after. Because that DeepSeek shock, it wasn't just a flash crash. It was. It was the starting gun for a complete overhaul of the data landscape.
The industry didn't just recover. It mutated.
It really did. And we're digging into this amazing retrospective from datapure.news by Samuel Williams called The DeepSeek Moment 1 Year On.
And the mission for this deep dive is to cut through all the noise. We want to understand how that one event 12 months ago fundamentally changed the job description of a data engineer.
Yeah.
Because if you're still building pipelines the way you were back in 2024, you might want to listen very closely. The ground has shifted.
It absolutely has. The headline shift is, it's pretty simple, actually. We moved from an industry obsessed with who has the biggest budget to who has the smartest architecture. We went from builders to architects.
Okay, let's unpack that. Williams calls it the efficiency revolution. But I have to push back just a little on the premise. Before January 2025, wasn't the golden rule basically that scale is king?
It was that.
The logic was, if you wanted a smarter model, you needed a bigger cluster. You had to burn more cash.
That was the prevailing wisdom,
Yes.
100%. The scaling laws they were basically a religion. The belief was that intelligence was directly tied to the number of parameters and the compute you threw at it.
It was a rich man's game.
Totally. If you didn't have $1 billion to spend, you just didn't get a seat at the table.
And DeepSeek R1 just broke that rule.
It shattered it.
Yeah.
They showed that you could get high-level reasoning, capabilities that rivaled the absolute best proprietary models from the U.S. giants at a tiny fraction of the training cost.
Right.
They proved that algorithmic efficiency mattered so much more than just brute force.
And the market confirmed that.
Yeah.
Just by voting with its feet or its downloads. One of the stats in the article that really jumped out at me was about the leaderboard. For the longest time, Meta's Llama family was the default, right? If you were doing open source, you were using Llama.
They absolutely set the standard for open weights, no question.
That's gone. By early this year, 2026, Alibaba's Quinn family has completely overtaken Llama. It's now the most downloaded on Hugging Face.
And look at the user base.
Yeah, the demographics. Chinese developers now make up 17.1% of Hugging Face's users.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump from 12% just a year ago.
It's a geopolitical shift happening in code. The center of gravity for open source innovation has definitely moved east. But for the listener, the engineer in Seattle or London, the geography matters less than the utility.
It's about what you can do with these things.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about that utility, because this is where the numbers get a little hard to believe. The article claims organizations are saving, 90% by switching from proprietary APIs? That sounds like marketing fluff. 90%.
It does sound exaggerated, I get that.
Yeah.
But if you actually run the math, a top-tier proprietary model through an API, you're paying a convenience tax.
Right, for their infrastructure, their profit margin.
All of it. And that usually lands you somewhere between, say, 3 and 12 cents per 1,000 tokens.
Which is fine if you're just building a chatbot prototype or something.
Sure, but what if you're processing millions of documents or analyzing logs in real time? That bill will destroy your P&L. Now, look at direct inference on a model like DeepSeek or Quinn.
Okay.
You are looking at $0.0002, fractions of a penny.
Source of fractions of a penny versus dimes.
It's orders of magnitude. And a price drop like that, it changes behavior. It's the Jevons paradox, right? As tech gets cheaper, you just use more of it. Suddenly, all these tasks that were just too expensive to automate are now routine.
Like what the article mentions, modernizing legacy code.
That's a perfect example. In 2024, if you had a million lines of old COBOL or just spaghetti Python, you wouldn't dream of paying a big API provider to rewrite it. It would cost a fortune today. You can point a self-hosted reasoning model at that code base and just say, explain this, document it, and refactor it. You can run complex data quality checks on every single row of data every single night.
So the barrier to entry has just vanished. But this creates a bit of an existential crisis for the data engineer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the tools are this cheap and this powerful, and the AI can write its own code, what does the human actually do?
And that is the absolute core of Williams's argument. The role has evolved from tactical maintenance to strategic architecture. Just think about your day-to-day, say, 2 years ago. What ate up most of your time?
Oh, putting out fires. A pipeline breaks at 3 a.m. because a schema changed and API timed out. Data drift.
Pure grunt work. The article notes engineers spent, up to 20% of their time just fixing broken stuff?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And in 2026, that maintenance is, well, it's becoming autonomous. We've entered the era of agentic AI.
Self-healing pipelines. I see that term everywhere now.
Yeah.
But how much do we really trust that? I mean, if an AI detects a schema change and decides to fix it, isn't there a huge risk it just corrupts all the downstream reporting?
There's risk, of course, but the systems have matured a lot. It's not just blindly patching code. These agents, they detect the anomaly, they identify the root cause, like a marketing tool adding a new field, and then they can either propose a fix for a human to approve,
Or just do it themselves?
or in lower risk environments, they execute the migration themselves.
So the robot is the plumber now.
Effectively.
Well.
And if you aren't plumbing anymore, you better be designing the building. The article points out that 65% of engineering leaders now see coding assistants as full lifecycle collaborators. They aren't just for auto-completing syntax anymore.
They're managing entire modernization projects.
Yeah.
So if we're not the builders of pipelines, we have to find our value elsewhere. Which brings us to the first big career shift the article identifies, the economics of deployment.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. We talked about those 90% savings.
There's always a catch.
There is always a catch, yes. And the catch is total cost of ownership, TCO. The model weights the software that might be free to download, but running them, that is very, very expensive.
You can't run a 70 billion parameter model on your MacBook Air.
Not even close. You need clusters of GPUs, probably NVIDIA H100s or newer. You need the power, the cooling. So the senior engineer of 2026 isn't the person who can write the best Python script.
It's the person who can do the math.
It's the person who can do the math. The math being, is it cheaper to pay the API bill or to buy the server rack?
And it's more subtle than that, I imagine.
It is. The article suggests the dividing line. If your volume is low, say under 1 million tokens a month, you probably just stick with the proprietary APIs. The headache of hosting just isn't worth it.
But for any real enterprise workload.
You self-host. But here's the hidden costs that everyone forgets about. MLOps overhead. The estimate is that for every major model you deploy internally, you need about a quarter to a half of a full-time employee just to keep that infrastructure humming.
So you save on tokens, but you spend on salary and silicon.
Which means the engineer has to be part accountant now. You have to balance latency, privacy, hardware costs, personnel. If you can't articulate that TCO to your CFO, you aren't doing the job anymore.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move to the second shift, which I think is maybe the most technically interesting one, semantic foundations.
This one is so critical. We spent the last decade building these beautiful data catalogs that, let's be honest, nobody uses.
We have impeccable metadata. This column is an integer. It represents customer age.
Right, that's descriptive metadata. It helps a human find a table. But it's passive. The shift in 2026 is towards semantics that allow the AI to reason. And this is where we get into GraphRag.
Okay, let's pause here for a second and clarify. Because RAG-HAM, right, retrieval augmented generation, that's pretty standard now.
It is.
We all know how to stick a PDF in a vector database so a chatbot can read it. So what makes GraphRag so different?
Standard RAG is all based on vector similarity. It matches words and concepts. So if you ask about Apple, it finds documents talking about Apple. But it really struggles with multi-hop reasoning. It doesn't inherently understand how things connect.
So it's a search engine, not a reasoning engine.
Exactly. GraphRag introduces a knowledge graph. It maps entities and their relationships. So it knows that supplier A provides part B, which is used in product C.
So if I ask, how will the strike at supplier A affect our Q3 revenue? A vector database might fail because the words strike and revenue aren't in the same document.
Right. But the knowledge graph sees the chain. It sees the strike delays part B. No
Yeah.
part B means no product C. No product C means Q3 revenue takes a hit. It's the nerve center for automation because it understands the structure of your business.
Not just the text in your documents.
That's the key. And Williams is blunt here. He says, if you aren't building semantic layers, you are building yesterday's infrastructure.
It's the difference between giving an AI a filing cabinet and giving it a map.
You need the map.
All right, let's pivot to something that keeps the legal teams up at night. Career shift number 3, governance and the security crisis.
You can't have this explosion of cheap, powerful models without a massive hangover. And that hangover is security,
The article calls it shadow AI.
which is exactly what it sounds like. You have a workforce that is desperate for efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So they find these amazing Chinese models, these open source tools, and they just start pasting company data into them.
Oh, no.
The stats are alarming. Sensitive data policy violations have doubled in just the last year.
And this isn't just about, an employee accidentally leaping a memo or something. There's a massive...
A massive regulatory layer, exactly. Specifically with Europe, the EU has been very aggressive. Italy investigating DeepSeek, then France and Ireland joining in.
And the core issue is the adequacy decision.
Right. The EU does not trust that personal data sent to Chinese servers is safe from government surveillance. So if you're a U.S. company doing business in Europe and you're using these...
You're in a minefield.
A compliance nightmare. So the data engineer suddenly has to become a governance strategist. You can't just be the person who says no to every cool new tool because people will just find a way around you.
So what's the solution? Do you just block everything?
You can't block progress. The strategy is governance-first innovation. You implement strict zero-trust access controls. You monitor data at runtime. Maybe you use a local, secure model for sensitive PII and only route generic tasks to the cheaper external models.
So you're building a traffic control system for data.
And you're the cop on the beat, making sure nobody smuggles secrets out the back door.
This leads perfectly into the 4th shift. If we have this security crisis and we can't use real customer data, how do we build anything?
You fake it.
Synthetic data.
The rise of synthetic data is the direct answer to the security crisis. Gartner's projection is that by the end of this year, 2026, 75% of data used in AI projects will be synthetic.
Wait, 75%? That's a staggering number. 3/4 of the data being used isn't even real.
But here's the thing. In many ways, it's better than real.
How so?
2 big reasons. First, privacy is obvious. I can generate 1 million fake customer records that are statistically identical to my real ones, and I can train a model on them without risking a GDPR fine.
Okay.
But the second reason is simulation.
The black swan stuff.
Exactly. Your real data is boring. It mostly shows you things working normally. But you need to train your AI on what happens when the server crashes, or when fraud spikes by 1,000%. You probably don't have enough real data for those rare events.
You generate the disaster scenario and you train the AI to survive it.
We've moved from the age of scaling, which was just about getting more data, to the age of context. And synthetic data lets you create any context you need on demand.
It really feels like the whole toolkit has just completely changed. We have open models, knowledge graphs, governance, synthetic data. And looking at the market, the tools themselves are merging to support this new reality.
The consolidation is happening so fast. The article points to the Fivetran and DBE Labs merger back in October 2025 as this huge signal.
Right, the 2 giants of the modern data stack getting married. Why was that specific merger so important?
Because of what comes next, the agentic AI mesh. For these agents to work, you need a single standardized data layer. You can't have an AI fighting with 5 different integration tools. That merger was about creating a unified highway for these agents to run on.
Okay, let's define this agentic AI mesh. It sounds a little like sci-fi.
It's just the practical application of everything we've just discussed. Instead of a linear pipeline from source A to target B, you have specialized agents, a sales agent, a logistics agent, a finance agent, and they all collaborate.
Okay, so give me a concrete example. Ground this for me. What does this look like on a, Tuesday morning?
Right. Hey, so imagine sales spike in a specific region. In the old world, what happens? A human analyst sees a report, downloads a CSV, emails the supply chain manager.
Slow, prone to error.
Very. In the agentic mesh, the sales agent detects that spike. It instantly pings the logistics agent to check inventory. The logistics agent sees a shortage and pings the finance agent to approve a budget increase for expedited shipping. The restock is executed autonomously.
That's the superfluidity the article mentions.
It is. The humans define the strategy. We want to prioritize customer satisfaction over shipping costs, and the agents handle all the execution.
And this is where the competitive advantage is in 2026. If your competitors are using agents to restock instantly, and you're still waiting for Dave to open his email,
You lose. It's really that simple. It's not about if the tech works anymore. We know it works. It's about how fast you can weave it into the fabric of your operations.
So let's bring this all back to the listener. We started with the panic of January 2025, but we've ended up with a roadmap for survival.
Or a roadmap for maturity. The DeepSeek moment forced the industry to grow up. We stopped just throwing money at problems and started throwing architecture at them.
So final question then. If I'm a data engineer and I'm hearing all this agents writing code, synthetic data, self-healing pipelines, I may be feeling a little obsolete. What's my value?
Your value has just shifted up the stack. You aren't valuable because you can write a great SQL query, and AI can do that now.
Yeah.
You are valuable because you understand the system. You understand TCO. You understand governance.
And you understand the business logic.
That is the moat.
Right.
That is everything. As all these models converge toward benchmark saturation, which basically means everyone has access to the same level of raw intelligence, the only thing that differentiates your company is its proprietary logic, your business rules.
The why behind the data.
If you can document that why and expose it so these agents can use it, you become the architect of the entire system. If you're just trying to guard the old way of building pipelines, you're in trouble.
So don't just build the pipes. Build the brain.
That's the takeaway.
The question isn't whether the technology works anymore. It's whether you are evolving fast enough to manage it.
A year is a very long time in AI.
A huge thank you to Samuel Williams and DataPro.news for this incredible piece. It's amazing how much the world can change in just 12 months.
It makes you wonder what we'll even be talking about in February 2027.
Oh, I have a feeling it's going to be even weirder. But we'll be here to do a deep dive when it happens. Thanks for listening, everyone. Go build something smart.
See you next time.